Maybe Chairman Dr. Mahmoud Baumia Eddie Edin Akudobi Ebatuja Anna Oframu, the fantastic team. No much I said they are going to manage the economy. Now, Mepeso Bekamo, Neakoti and Sama, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia Edituja.
When I look at the economic management team, it is quite clearly a fantastic team. Professor Jambafo, Dr. Akotose, Dr. Afriye Akoto, Honorable Alan Chiramanting, Boachi Ejaku, Ken Ofori Atta, Senior Minister Yao Osafo Mafu. What a solid team. In fact, can anyone remember the NDC economic management team? I'm sure they themselves cannot remember who their economic management team was. Kukrudu, fellow Kukrudites, we were elected to fix the problems, and I'm glad to report that we are fixing the problems and we are putting in place the policies that will drive the economic transformation of this country. It is very clear that the economy is beginning to respond to the policies of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Chief William Osmo and Sama Dr. Mahmoud Baumia Edituja Emra and I said Arabia Achamu Eni. Na ena kisa ato Forson a minority leader in parliament. Na wa expose a NPP again. Offer this team no the economic mismanagement team. Na wachache ensemu nienti agana for ye go through this hardship. Ne how NPP has mismanaged the economy. Mepeso Bekamo, Neakoti and Sama minority leader Kizel Ato Forson Edituja, Sky Ghana TV. Say, we are new to the channel, subscribe to channel no share Maunionso and Sa and Kebe. You best also bell like a video no watch it our comment section. Yenti and Sama Ato Forson Edituja our parliament.
The Speaker, Ghanaians must understand that clearly it is not the IMF which has imposed these horrible conditionalities on austerity on them. In fact, it is rather the government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the economic mismanagement team led by Alhaji Bawumia that has imposed these horrible conditionalities on the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, this is the only IMF program that came with debt restructuring. Again, it should be noted that this is the first in the history of the Republic of Ghana. This debt restructuring program has impoverished the rich, the middle class, and to a larger extent, the poor. Mr. Speaker, this same debt restructuring has rendered our banking and financial institutions insolvent, virtually bankrupt. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, almost all our banks, non-bank financial institutions, and insurance companies declared huge losses in 2022 as a result of government recklessness and mismanagement, which resulted in this debt restructuring. Mr. Speaker, our country is in distress, our people are in despair, and most Ghanaians have lost hope in this incompetent NPP administration. Mr. Speaker, all the hardships we are seeing and experiencing are avoidable. In fact, these hardships are needless. Right, Honorable Speaker, the level of economic adjustment that we have witnessed in the last 12 months have never happened in the history of Ghana. This is the worst economic adjustment we have seen, even times than what we are seeing so far. Inflation rose to a hyper level of 54.1 in 2022. This is unprecedented in the history of the Fourth Republic. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Ghana cedi depreciated from 6 Ghana cedi to $1 to over 15 Ghana cedis to $1 in the year 2022. Mr. Speaker, this is over 100% depreciation on a straight line calculation. Mr. Speaker, depreciation coupled with inflation have reduced the rich to a middle class, and above all, the poor have become poorer. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana printing of money caused the depletion of Ghana's external reserves, which resulted in the unprecedented depreciation of the Ghana cedi, which obviously is the main cause of the inflation we are seeing so far. Mr. Speaker, an estimated 850,000 Ghanaians were reported by the World Bank to have pushed further down the poverty line in 2022 alone due to the inflation we experienced. Mr. Speaker, the government admitted in paragraph 2 of the Memorandum on Economic Policy that was sent to the IMF that the illegal printing of money by the Bank of Ghana, which was supervised by the Economic Mismanagement Team led by Mr. Strategist, caused this hyperinflation of 54.1% in the year 2022. Mr. Speaker, after spirited denial by the Bank of Ghana and the government, now thanks to the IMF, the government has come to admit that indeed the Bank of Ghana printed money to finance its over-bloated expenditures in the year 2022. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 8 of the IMF staff report further gives further details that the Bank of Ghana illegally printed over 45 billion Ghana cedis, representing 7.2% of GDP in 2022 alone, and another 35 billion in 2000, first in the history of Ghana. The Speaker, the Bank of Ghana is certainly a crime scene. Certainly a crime scene. And it should be noted that the economic managers led by Alhaji Bawumia aided and abated this crime. So, Speaker, this singular crime by the Bank of Ghana is responsible for the additional 850,000 Ghanaians who have moved from poor to poorer and into extreme poverty, according to the latest World Bank report. So, Speaker, the key members of the Economic Mismanagement Team that superintended and supervised this economic crime are: number 1, Dr. Alhaji Mahmudu Bawumia, aka Mr. Strategist. Excuse me. Mr. Speaker, number 2, we have the almighty Ken Ofori Atta. I call him aka One Program, One Bond. Mr. Speaker, we also have Governor Ernest Addison, aka the printer, who prints money for the government. Mr. Speaker, what a solid economic mismanagement team. What a solid economic mismanagement team that has mismanaged our economy and our livelihood to this level. Mr. Speaker, no thanks to this economic mismanagement team, our public debt increased from 120 billion Ghana cedis to 600 billion Ghana cedis, an increase of about 400% within a period of 6 years. So, Speaker, as a result of this high level of debt, Ghana defaulted in the repayment of both our domestic and foreign debt, the first time in the history of our country, making pensioners to picket at the Ministry of Finance to demand the payment of their interest and principal, another first in the history of Ghana. Right Honorable Speaker, rating agencies downgraded Ghana's credit worthiness to D, in other words, super junkie. So, Speaker, that is where we are. This made us a baller economy, which required our outgoing Minister of Sanitation to probably clean up. So, Speaker, the Honorable Madam Cecilia Dapa must probably clean up this mess before leaving office. So, Speaker, the unsustainable debt levels resulted in the painful domestic debt default. Right Honorable Speaker, Ghana's financial sector has virtually collapsed. All 23 banks in Ghana recorded massive impairment losses of over 18.3 billion Ghana cedis in 2023 alone. So, Speaker, to give you the details, Absa Bank recorded a loss in 2022 of 2.1 billion Ghana cedis. Access Bank recorded a loss of 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. ADB, Ghanaian Local Bank, recorded a loss of 380 million Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, Bank of Africa Limited, Bank of Africa, recorded a loss of 190 million Ghana cedis. Car Bank PLC, the Speaker, recorded a loss of 1.45 billion Ghana cedis, all in 2022. The Speaker, CBG, the Consolidated Bank Ghana, recorded a loss, 2022 alone, 1.8 billion Ghana cedis, CBG. The Speaker, aside that, Ecobank, the famous Ecobank, the Speaker, Ecobank recorded a loss of 1.7 billion Ghana cedis. Aside of the Speaker, FBN Bank Ghana Limited recorded a loss of 210 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, Fidelity Bank recorded a loss of 1,060 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker said that is not enough. First Atlantic Bank recorded a loss of 230 million Ghana cedis. First National Bank recorded a loss of 260 million Ghana cedis. The famous Ghanaian bank, the GCB Bank PLC, recorded a loss of 2.1 billion Ghana cedis in 2022 alone. GCB, 2.1 billion Ghana. Guarantee Trust Bank recorded a loss of 560 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, as for NIB, they cannot even publish their financial reports. The Speaker, 4 years in a row, NIB has not been able to publish their financial report. No wonder that in the IMF document sent by the Ministry of Finance to the IMF, the Speaker, they admitted that NIB is virtually insolvent. I'm not surprised, the Speaker. Omni Bisek, Ghana Limited, recorded a loss of 150 million Ghana cedis. Prudential Bank Limited recorded a loss of 70 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, Republic Bank Ghana Limited recorded a loss of 240 million Ghana cedis. The Speaker, SGSSB recorded a loss of 280 million Ghana cedis. Stanbic Bank Ghana Limited recorded a loss of 970 million Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, I can go on and on, but let me add that Merchant Bank PLC, Merchant Bank Ghana Limited, recorded a loss of 510 million Ghana cedis. And finally, Zenith Bank Ghana Limited recorded a loss of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. All put together clearly shows that our domestic bank, all the 23 of them in 1 year, recorded up to 18.3 billion Ghana cedis in losses. The Speaker, how can our financial sector be treated this way? It is going to be a major risk going forward, and we should take note. The Speaker, these numbers I've just mentioned excludes the impairment losses of the non-bank financial institutions and insurance companies. If you are to add insurance companies and non-bank financial institutions, the number will be hitting close to 30 billion Ghana cedis of losses. The Speaker, I'm not surprised. But let me state that the cost of this economic mismanagement by this government is unprecedented. The cost of this economic mismanagement by this government to the people of Ghana and Ghanaian institutions, in fact, Mr. Speaker, is unprecedented. This domestic debt exchange has not only affected commercial banks, Mr. Speaker, it has also affected the Bank of Ghana negatively. In fact, the Bank of Ghana is in a major financial distress. Mr. Speaker, it will not be wrong for me to say our Bank of Ghana is currently bankrupt. That will require immediate attention. Mr. Speaker, in 2022 alone, the Bank of Ghana recorded a loss of 60.8 billion Ghana cedis and a negative equity of 51.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, if you are to have negative equity for a bank like this, Mr. Speaker, the situation is there, and it will require immediate attention. Mr. Speaker, no wonder. That is why you can see in paragraph 18 of the Memorandum on Economic and Financial Policy that was sent to IMF by this government. Mr. Speaker, I quote, paragraph 8 says that the government and the Bank of Ghana will assess the impact of the debt restructuring on the Bank of Ghana's balance sheet and develop plans for its recapitalization. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians should expect to pay for the cost of recapitalization of the Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, don't be surprised to see Bank of Ghana recapitalization soon. Mr. Speaker, I say this on authority that I will not be surprised for Ghanaians to be paying a tax called the Bank of Ghana recapitalization levy because, Mr. Speaker, Bank of Ghana, Yamutu. That is the reality, Mr. Speaker, and we should be made aware of. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana has fallen on its own sword. Its own action of excessive money printing and the government reckless borrowing caused this mess that we are seeing. The Speaker, permit me to borrow a fancy proverb which says, to wit, the elephant will suffer, but the hunter will suffer so. The Speaker, the Bank of Ghana felt that they are destroying banks. Today, their actions and inaction has landed them there. So, Speaker, that is where we are as a country. Speaker, let me also add, the Bank of Ghana cannot Mr. Speaker, and I repeat, the Bank of Ghana cannot unilaterally write off government debt without the approval of Parliament. The government cannot force the Bank of Ghana to do same without parliamentary approval. The Bank of Ghana and the executive arm of government have written off nearly 48.4 billion Ghana cedis of government debt onto Bank of Ghana without parliamentary approval. Mr. Speaker, we cannot sit and allow this to happen. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana is a sovereign bank. The shareholders are the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, we are the representative of Ghanaians, and we should be given the opportunity to allow this to happen. Mr. Speaker, we cannot allow this. And I serve notice that we will not allow the Bank of Ghana and the executive arm of government to unilaterally write off Bank of Ghana's debt, government debt worth 48.4 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, that is not acceptable. Mr. Speaker, we maintain that the entire government of Ghana's debt restructuring program must be submitted to Parliament for scrutiny and possible approval. Mr. Speaker, that is what the way we should go as a country. Mr. Speaker, let me say that we have not turned the corner. We have not even seen the corner from where we are as a country. In fact, we are still in the woods. We are still in a big mess. Of course, a big mess. We are nowhere near the corner, let alone to turn it. The government must rather apologize to the people of Ghana for destroying our livelihood, our country, and our motherland. Mr. Speaker, the mess is gargantuan. Right, Honorable Speaker, let me repeat this. We have not turned the corner. We have not seen the corner from where we are as a country. In fact, we are still in the woods. We are still in a mess. Of course, a big mess. We are nowhere near the corner, let alone to turn it. The government must rather apologize to the people of Ghana for destroying our livelihoods, our country, and our motherland. So, Speaker, the mess we are seeing today is gargantuan and require urgent action. Right, Honorable Speaker, this government has successfully collapsed all state-owned enterprises and institutions. So, Speaker, the almighty Bank of Ghana is now bankrupt, with a negative equity of 55.1 billion and counting. That will require taxpayers to recapitalize it. Again, Mr. Speaker, who would have thought the once prestigious Ghana Cocoa Board will today be bankrupt to the extent that they can't repay their debt. The Bank of Ghana today cannot even pay cocoa bond holders. The Ghana Cocoa Board, they cannot even pay cocoa bond holders. They cannot pay their cocoa road contractors. The Cocoa Board today cannot even pay license buying companies, LBCs. Cocoa Board, they are struggling to pay fertilizer supplies. Mr. Speaker, the NPP administration have successfully murdered the financial health of almost all our state-owned enterprises. For example, Mr. Speaker, JNPC, Yamutu, GRA Group, Yamutu, ECG, Yamutu, GIHOC, Yamutu, NETCO, Yamutu, GRIDCO, Yamutu, Buffer Stocks, Yamutu, Ghana Publishing Company, Yamutu, Ghana Railways, Yamutu, STC, Yamutu, Ghana Airport Company, Yamutu. So, Speaker, almost all state enterprises are gone. So, Speaker, that is where we are. So, Speaker, so Mr. Minister, this is your scorecard. This is the scorecard of the President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, and Mr. Strategist, our Vice President. So, Speaker, everything is gone. So, Speaker, what a corner, Honorable Minister, what a corner have you turned? I don't think that you have turned the corner. Mr. Speaker, let me ask the Minister some few questions. Mr. Minister, how could you claim to have turned a corner when GDP growth has been revised from 2.8% to 1.5%? Mr. Minister, how could you have turned a corner when currently your net international reserves is hovering around 1 week of import cover and is projected to be about 3 weeks by the end of the year? So, Speaker, let me ask you once again, Mr. Minister, how could you claim to have turned a corner when inflation is currently 42.5% and rising and projected to be 31.3% by the end of the year? Honorable Minister, how could you claim to have turned a corner when monetary policy rate is 30% and rising and commercial banking rate, lending rate is 36% and also rising? Honorable Minister, how could you claim to have turned a corner when you know that inflation is currently 42% and rising and projected to be 31% by the end of the year. When monetary policy rate is 30% and rising, and when commercial banking rate is also 36% and rising. But most importantly, I want to ask him, how could you claim to have turned the corner when you have not stopped the reckless borrowings? After informing Parliament that you are not going to borrow in the domestic market in 2023, Honorable Minister, you borrowed 5.5 billion from the T-bill market in the first 6 months of the year alone. Your own financing, if you are to look at Appendix 2C, it tells you what you have done. Mr. Speaker, this is a document not coming from me. Mr. Speaker, he also intends to borrow another 41.3 billion in the next 6 months, also without parliamentary approval, because the Speaker, what he submitted to us, he did not ask us to approve. He's only telling us by way of information. Mr. Speaker, that is why I'm of the view that media review must come in a form of a motion. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Minister, this is for your own good, so you are protected. Mr. Speaker, again, he intends to borrow 41.3 billion Ghana cedis from the T-bill market in the next 6 months. No wonder that 91 days T-bill rate has moved from the 14% after the debt restructuring to 27% and counting. Mr. Speaker, I won't be surprised that in this, the way he's going, by the end of the year, T-bill rate, the 91 days T-bill rate will be 35%. Mr. Speaker, that is the reality. Because clearly, if 5.5 billion additional borrowing can move you from 14% to 27%, only God knows, additional 41.3 billion borrowing will move you from 27% to probably 35% or maybe 40% by the end of the year. Honorable Minister, we are in a big mess. Mr. Speaker, let me make it clear that we have not turned the corner. The performance of this economic management team, despite the hype over the past 7 years, has been beyond abysmal. With this mess created by this NPP administration, Ghana will require over 5 years of collective sacrifice and dedication to turn things around. Mr. Speaker, this government has rewritten Ghana's economic history, and a book on how not to manage an economy must be dedicated to the Akufo-Addo government. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, this government has rewritten Ghana's economic history, and a book on how not to manage an economy must be dedicated to this Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government. Mr. Speaker, in due course, I will author that book. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And some Kesel Ato Forson Edituja Ewo Parliament ni na wa expose and I say wa go hard on NPP again. Ghana eye menewodia adru menewoso say beye bi atwaso. Fa wadwen chebra comment section ho na subscribe to channel no.